The following program is sponsored by CBN.
Coming up, Justice Texas style.
This is a courtroom where I was sentenced to 5 99-year sentences.
Find out what happens when this con comes face to face with the man who put him behind bars.
I said, you know what? I think that's the judge who sentenced me.
I said, are we okay?
Plus, the NFL coach who once called the football field his mission field.
What else is going to matter in the end?
Now, see why this Super Bowl champ is leaving the gridiron for good.
I felt like the Lord prepared me for that moment.
On today's 700 Club.
Well, welcome, folks, to this edition of the 700 Club. Well, the president picked the most qualified of the candidates to be the next Supreme Court justice. Brett Kavanaugh, a superb man who, interestingly enough, teaches law at Harvard, at Yale, and at Georgetown, and who was put into the position in Harvard by the then dean of the Harvard Law School, Elena Kagan, who is now sitting on the Supreme Court. Yeah. So it's interesting that the Democrats are going to oppose him. I said if the president had nominated Moses, the Democrats would find fault with him. It didn't make any difference what it was.
Well, I think people are finding that true.
Yeah, I mean, they're getting sick of this. But I mean, this man is uniquely qualified. But when you are a professor at Harvard, at Yale, and at Georgetown...
if not you, then who, right?
Yeah, I mean, how good can it get? And his decisions have been followed by the Supreme Court of the United States at least 12 times. Amazing man. And Jay Sekulow is going to talk about him.
Well, he is. Well, in the primetime announcement, Kavanaugh stepped into the spotlight and introduced himself to the American people. Today, Vice President Mike Pence will escort him to Capitol Hill to meet Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, the man charged with securing his confirmation. Ben Kennedy has more from the White House.
This was no doubt a historic moment for President Trump as he moved to make his mark on the Supreme Court with a second nominee. During the Made for Primetime event, President Trump introduced Judge Brett Kavanaugh as his nominee to replace retiring Justice Anthony Kennedy.
What matters is not a judge's political views, but whether they can set aside those views to do what the law and the Constitution require. I am pleased to say that I have found, without doubt, such a person.
Handpicked from a group of 25, Kavanaugh becomes a crucial appointment that could tilt the court for decades.
My judicial philosophy is straightforward. A judge must be independent and must interpret the law, not make the law.
Are you ready for a fight?
Demonstrators gathered outside the high court to express their disappointment with the president's pick, and they aren't the only ones.
The AFA, the American Family Association, which we all know here, and their, I guess determined would be more on the further on the right, if you will. They are, remember, this is an evangelical conservative organization. They are calling on their supporters to oppose Brett Kavanaugh. Now, that's news, and that's a big deal.
Kavanaugh has served on the D.C. Court of Appeals since 2006. He earned a law degree from Yale, clerked for Justice Kennedy, and has a vast judicial record with more than 300 opinions.
Tomorrow, I begin meeting with members of the Senate, which plays an essential role in this process.
Now President Trump predicts a vicious confirmation battle. The lines are already drawn. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell wants a vote by the fall. However, Democrats want to wait until after the midterms. With a razor-thin majority and Senator John McCain battling brain cancer at home, Republicans need total unity to push this nominee through. Ben Kennedy, CBN News, Washington.
Well, Jake Sekulow, as you know, is chief counsel for the American Center for Law and Justice, and he's joining us now. Jay, you told me, and we agreed, that Brett Kavanaugh, without question, was the most qualified. What do you know about him?
Well, I've known Brett for a long time. I knew him when he worked for the Bush administration. He worked with us on some cases while he was in private practice. And, of course, we've been in front of him as a Court of Appeals judge in the D.C. Circuit, which is probably the second highest and second most powerful court in the country. And I will tell you this. He's a brilliant lawyer. He's been a brilliant judge, and he's going to be a brilliant justice to the Supreme Court. This is a guy that you already mentioned his academic credentials and background, but he understands the Constitution. He understands the role of the judge in our constitutional republic. And Pat, I was really pleased that the president made this selection. Look, I mean, some people are picking apart. The guy's written 300 opinions, and some people are still looking at this opinion or that opinion, say, I wish it went this way or that way. The fact of the matter is this. Justice Scalia famously said that a good judge will sometimes come to a conclusion which bothers him on a personal basis, but is what the law requires him to do. And the role of the judge is to do what the law requires him to do. So this is someone that understands judicial restraint, separation of powers. He understands the role of each of the three branches of government. So I don't think there could have been a better pick.
Well, you know, the thing that shocked me is the way that the courts have varied from the Constitution. You go back to Griswold and all that penumbras and emanations and all that nonsense that came out of that Griswold decision. I mean, they have just gone off the reservation so often. The Democrats apparently want a Constitution which is malleable according to the mores of the time. And Kavanaugh says, no, I want to stick with the strict letter of the law. Is that what you understand?
Yeah, he's a textualist. He's an originalist, but he also understands that the way, if you want to change the Constitution, the American people can. They've done it 24 times, called an amendment to the Constitution. There's a process for amendment, but judges do not get to make that determination. They don't get to make that decision. So Brett Kavanaugh views the Constitution as it is written, as a textualist, as an originalist. He's a constitutional conservative in that sense. But let me tell you something else about Brett Kavanaugh that we saw last night on display at the White House. And this is, you saw the humility and the side of him, the personal side of him. Like I said, I've known Brett for a long time. He's going to be a great justice. Look, they're going to be, this is going to be, you said it, this is going to be, and the president said, this is going to be a vicious campaign to discredit an individual with an impeccable credentials and a brilliant background. But you need to buckle your seatbelts because this is Washington and we know what's going to happen. But at the end of the day, here's my prediction. Come out the first Monday in October, which is October 1st, Justice Kavanaugh will be on the Supreme Court.
What does this mean? You know, we've been fighting in the American Center for Law and Justice for years against a court that was stacked against Christian values and religious tradition and so forth. And it's almost impossible. If you bring a case, you almost know you're going to fail, and therefore you don't take cases because you get precedent against you. Now, it's a whole new ball game. If he's on the court, what are we going to do? What would the ACLJ do?
You know, Pat, it's interesting because we had a good term this term. We had a couple of cases up that were attached to other cases that got reversed in our favor. That was very good on the merits. So we had a good term. But let me tell you this. We did an analysis of the justices on the Supreme Court. And, you know, Justice Anthony Kennedy ruled in our favor 78.8% of the time, almost 80% of the time. That's a pretty good record before the Supreme Court. I mean, so we've had a very good track record there. We've got a case that's coming up right now, a free speech case out of the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals that I'm optimistic the court will hear. It's a straightforward free speech case. You know, there's a lack of academic freedom inside universities in many cases, and there's now lack of academic freedom and freedom of speech outside of some universities, even in public areas. So that case is going to the Supreme Court right now. So I'm encouraged. We've had a good run this year, but you're right. You've got to be. Our success at the Supreme Court is because we've been, as you know, Pat, and you're the founder of the ACLJ. We have been selective on what we take up, and the court is still going to be closely divided. So no one should assume that all of a sudden, this is a different world we live in. This is a very divided court. If you look at the key cases, we had a case at the Supreme Court this term involving the crisis pregnancy centers and their ability to not be compelled to violate their conscience by referring individuals, women seeking access to their facilities, but also saying you can get a free abortion down the street, which would violate the Constitution. And justices agreed with our position in a case there, 5-4, and that case has been sent back to the lower court, and we're going to be successful now in light of the opinions that came out. But it was 5-4, so you've got to be cognizant of the fact that it's still a closely divided court. Brett Kavanaugh being added to the court will still make it a closely divided court. And, you know, as you know better than anybody, it's very difficult to predict how an individual justice is going to rule on an individual case. That's because they have to see the facts, They have to read the briefs. They have to hear the arguments. And what I think Brett Kavanaugh will be pushed aggressively by some on the Judiciary Committee to say how he will rule in a particular case. And he should do what Justice Ginsburg did, which is say, I am not going to discuss how I may or may not rule on a case that is likely to come before me. And that's they call it the Ginsburg rule. And I actually think Justice Ginsburg was right.
Let me ask you about this Affordable Care Act. You know, they upheld it on the basis of it being a tax. And, of course, Obama had said it's not a tax. And then the Supreme Court said it is a tax. And therefore, they upheld it. Kavanaugh voted along with Judge Roberts on that, and some conservatives are going after it on account of that vote. Well, what do you think about that?
Well, let me tell you, I know something about that case, because you know whose case that was? Ours. That was a case that the American Center for Law and Justice brought in the U.S. District Court. And I was concerned from the outset. I don't know if you remember this, Pat, a long time ago when this case was when the issue was first percolating, I raised the concern. Now, as you know, my background is as a tax lawyer. I worked for Chief Counsel's office, the Department of Treasury, as the IRS's lawyer in their legal department. And I was concerned that the tax issue was significant because of two things. Number one, you got the origination clause on that issue, but also that the way the cases were being challenged, if it was in fact a tax, which the government initially denied, but ultimately they admitted it, there is an Anti-Injunction Act. So Brett Kavanaugh did not rule on the merits of the case, saying that the ACA was good or bad. He said that the Anti-Injunction Act prohibited the enforcement action or the litigation from moving forward in the way it did. Now, let me tell you something about the tax. Was it a tax? Well, I think we all know it's a tax now, and it's enforced by what part of the U.S. code? The tax code. It's part of the Internal Revenue Code. So the fact of the matter is, at the end of the day, guess what it was? A tax. It's going to take legislation to fix that. I don't think we should be. The courts have gone as far as they're going to go. The individual mandate, priest for life, Kavanaugh ruled, I think, exactly correctly in the Garza case, which was the alien, the illegal immigrant, or the young. She was a young girl at that point that came in and they were seeking access to an abortion, and he did not go as far as someone. I know I heard in the report that the American Family Association's disagreeing with Brett's decision on that, but he actually ruled exactly what the administration was seeking. And a judge doesn't go out of their way to expand. He's a minimalist in that sense, and I think, an incrementalist, and that's how you view the Constitution. That's how I view the Constitution. So I'm optimistic there. I'm not concerned about it. Again, you got to look at 300 opinions, not 3. And you have to understand that this is, and you said this, he'd been affirmed by the Supreme Court a dozen times. So, and his cases are cited all over the circuits. I mean, his decisions are cited in circuits around the country. So to argue that this is not a well-qualified nominee is preposterous, frankly.
Well, you remember how the Democrats used to say, well, they're, quote, out of the mainstream. I can't imagine anybody who teaches at Harvard, teaches at Yale, and teaches at Georgetown is held out of the mainstream. He's right dead center in the midst of the best legal thinking we have in this country.
Hired by Justice Kagan. She was then, as you said, Dean Kagan at Harvard Law School. And look, Brett Kavanaugh is going to be confirmed. I think the press releases against Brett Kavanaugh were already written. Fill in the blank, whoever it was going to be. There's nobody. I think you said, Moses would not be appointed and people would be happy about it on the left of center. I think that's probably right. But at the end of the day, look, Brett Kavanaugh is going to get a well-qualified recommendation from the American Bar Association. He has sterling credentials. He's going to be confirmed.
Jay, thanks for that prediction, and I think that's one, folks, you can take to the bank. All right.
Boy, Mitch McConnell's got his job cut out for him.
He really does, but he's a master of it. He'll bring it out. Well, there's good news from Thailand. We've been watching all the world has been looking at the fact that those 12 boys and their soccer coach have all been rescued, and where they were trapped for nearly 3 weeks. Health officials say the boys are in high spirits, generally healthy, and they're now in a hospital where they'll stay for at least 7 days. If medical tests show no danger, parents will be able to visit their children for the first time since they entered the cave 18 days ago. And so we rejoice at that and share the good news with those parents that those little boys, those young fellows have been.
Hats off to the SEAL teams that were involved in that.
Yeah, one of them lost their life because he ran out of oxygen. But It was a difficult rescue, and they got him out before the monsoon started and flooded the thing even worse.
Absolutely.
All right.
Well, coming up, a former felon meets the judge who put him away.
That's the judge who sentenced me to 5 99-year sentences.
I said, are we okay?
Hear the answer to that question after this.
Well, the White House is pointing to crime-fighting methods in Texas as an example for the nation to follow. The Lone Star State's crime rate is falling, and it's actually putting fewer people behind bars by moving from a lock-'em-up mentality to one of rehabilitation. John Jessup shows us an extraordinary example of how it's changing lives for people on both sides of the system.
All rise.
As a former police officer, prosecutor, and judge, Robert Newsom would appear to typify Texas law and order. When he judges cases, however, Newsom follows two other principles: justice and compassion.
So my judicial philosophy is, yes, I believe in the law, I promote the law, I'll stand with the law. But on the other hand, there's a place for mercy built into our law.
Sulphur Springs boasts this picture-perfect town square. But like most stories, life has many twists and turns. One such turn began 20 years ago when Judge Newsom met a young man in his courthouse who was on the wrong side of the law.
Well, this is the courtroom where I was sentenced to 5 99-year sentences.
Ron Atkins fell into a life of crime at 14. After a string of burglaries, a jury hammered him with almost 500 years in prison. At 22 and with no hope of ever leaving lockdown, Ron lashed out.
So I set about making a reputation for myself, making a life for myself in the prison. And I became really violent.
He joined a prison gang, fought inmates and staff, and racked up 250 prison violations. That put him in solitary, where he would eventually spend 13 years. Alone and suicidal, he says he turned to God and a worn-out Bible.
Half the pages were missing because I've been using it for rolling papers. I've been smoking cigarettes with Bible paper. All that was left of the Bible was the New Testament.
Ron learned about grace, forgiveness, and God's love, so he left the gang for a Bible study. In 2012, Ron experienced his first miracle, a surprise review that resulted in parole more than 80 years before his projected release in 2095.
I didn't even think it was real till I actually got out of the gate.
Once out of prison, he found work and also began sharing his story at churches and conferences.
Father God, Lord, I love you and I thank you.
That's how he met his wife, also a former felon, and now an ordained minister and a licensed Christian counselor. Then, one day while sitting in church, he ran into someone from his past.
It dawned on me. I told the pastor, I said, you know what? I think that's the judge who sentenced me to 5 99-year sentences. He's like, no, I don't think so.
Afterwards, I went up to Ron.
Came up to me and he was like,
I said, are we okay?
You know, I just felt my heart go out to him, you know.
And he grabbed me and hugged me, you know, real big.
It was good.
Burying their past, the judge and the man he put away forged a future based on faith.
I never did go to prison. I never did do some of the things that Ron has done, but I'm a sinner saved by grace, just like Ron is. We're brothers. We're brothers.
This new relationship includes getting together each week at Judge Newsom's home.
Come on in, everybody.
Where neighbors, family, and other former convicts spend time together singing and praying.
To go in the judge's living room and have them treat me just like one of the family, you know, it was just really awesome. And God's just developed a relationship where him and his wife, they're like mama and papa to me, you know.
And the ripple effect of this unlikely story expands much further into the community.
Not long after Ron stepped out of prison, he returned to the place where he was once jailed to share a message of freedom to men searching for hope and purpose.
Don't ever discount anything with God, because once He's in your life, He's working through every detail, man.
In the room next door, his wife Dawn shares her story with the women in jail. Ron's relationship with Judge Newsom opened the door for him to reach others who identify with his story. They cling to his every word, eager to experience the spiritual freedom he proclaims.
Let's give it all to God, and let's get set free. Let's get some forgiveness in your heart. You know what's in their lives, Lord. I just pray you reveal it to them, God.
While critics question the merits of faith-based prison programs, Sheriff Tatum tells CBN News this one makes a difference. Through Ron and Don's ministry, inmates and even some staff have been baptized. According to Judge Newsom, it sparked a mini revival in the county. Ron believes this new chapter is evidence of God rewriting his past to create a lasting legacy.
In the very place where I was sentenced to die in prison, he was going to use us to bring dead things back to life. And that's what he's doing. In the jail, in the worship nights, in the prayer meetings, he's just bringing dead things alive.
John Jessup, CBN News, in Sulphur Springs, Texas.
Thanks, John. You know, I've asked our staff to do a little reprise of the stories we've done about several years ago called A Nation of Criminals. America, this great land of the free and home of the brave, has more people incarcerated. I don't think it's percentage-wise. I think it's absolute. And I may be wrong in those figures, so check me. But I think we have more people incarcerated than the Soviet Union or Red China. I mean, we've got so many laws, and I'm going to try to find out how many laws are out there, especially how many regulations are put in by federal agencies, not by Congress, but by agencies that involve incarceration. And I think the whole idea of what we just saw there is rehab and rehabilitation is the way to go. I mean, just warehousing people, and it costs a lot of money, and it costs an awful lot in human capital. And the damage to society is grave. And this tough on crime thing, a lot of people got elected and go, I'm going to be tough on crime. Well, sure. Well, tough on crime is one thing, but locking people up forever because of minor offenses is something else, and it's really bad. In that case, you're looking at 3 strikes and you're out. 3 offenses, it may be minor. You might have 2 offenses and you steal a hammer and some nails from a hardware store and you get life in prison. I mean, that's just not smart. So, Terry, we'll be looking at that down the road.
I think that's very exciting. You know, I'm on the board of an organization called Discipleship Unlimited that just opened in Texas also.
Really?
Their 7th faith dorm. Women come in for a 2-year program. They get immersed in the Word of God. Their lives are changed. And then they go back into the population as evangelists and are bringing the Word of God. People are being set free. They're being rehabilitated. It's pretty wonderful. So go Texas. I mean,
we're on the board of that. Good for you.
Yes, yeah, great work. Well, up next, the NFL assistant head coach who left the football field for the pulpit.
Coach Carroll made an announcement to the team that I'd be leaving the Seahawks to go into full-time ministry, and it was incredible. I felt like the Lord prepared me for that moment.
Rocky Seto tells why he left his lifelong coaching career to become a pastor after this. What would make a Super Bowl champion assistant head coach just walk away from his lucrative career? Well, that's the question our sports reporter Tom Buring asked former Seahawk coach Rocky Seto. And here's his answer.
What else is going to matter in the end? Super Bowls aren't going to matter. National championships aren't going to matter. In the end, where do we rank Jesus in all this stuff that God's given us? And simply put, Jesus, there's nothing better than Jesus. Jesus is the greatest treasure.
A treasure trove that Rocky Seto lives for. The successful NFL and collegiate coach called a career audible, leaving football to devote his energy training to help pastor the church he once attended in Southern California. A decision announced after a January 2017 playoff loss.
You go through that typical end-of-season exit meeting. What did you say?
Coach Carroll made an announcement to the team that I'd be leaving the Seahawks to go into full-time ministry, and Coach Carroll invited me up and to talk to the team, and got to talk about Jesus and about the gospel, the goodness of God. And so I was able to talk about that with the team and then leave on that note. It was incredible. I felt like the Lord prepared me for that moment.
In the response?
They gave me a standing ovation and a bunch of hugs, and it was great. It was like ridiculously encouraging, and the Lord is good, you know. And then after that, stayed there for another couple of days, cleaned out my office, and then that was it.
Even those close to the team said, listen, quite honestly, Rocky has been pastoring all along. His employment just happened to be football. How has coaching prepared you?
Oh, coaching and pastoring have incredible parallels. And God impressed upon my heart, hey, how have I trained you over the last 20 years? And in coaching, God's raised me up to lead and to develop leaders. And that's what I'm called to do, is to lead, develop leaders, to love Jesus and give them what they need. And Jesus defines leadership as, you know, he said this, I did not come to be served, but to serve, to give my life as a ransom.
It's the ambition of most to get to what you just left.
I think this is a big point. It's God who's the one that blessed and opened doors to be coaching at USC, let alone coaching at the Seattle. It was all God. When we know that, you know, we don't hold on to, like, I got to hold on to. The trap is thinking that we're the ones that could make this thing go. And God is the one that makes this thing go. So it's always better to be under God's will.
What was the turning point for you?
I thought about this maybe extensive for the last 7 years. God, it's a time to go into ministry. I just felt like I was going to be called into ministry. I just didn't know when and where. So Pastor Corey Ishida of Evergreen Baptist of the San Gabriel Valley, the church I grew up in Southern California, called me up and said, hey, I think you're going to be my next senior pastor.
For him to make this monumental decision of leaving pro football to enter into the ministry. I mean, he makes decisions based upon what he feels the Lord wants in his life. And that is an invaluable attribute and trait for a pastor. Actually, it's an invaluable trait for anybody who calls upon the name of Jesus.
Career change, a new opportunity, divine appointment. What do you call it?
Well, certainly a calling. And God calls people to coach, which he did for me for almost 20 years. Because he's called me to be a pastor at this church. This is the ultimate thing that we could do. Or if he's called you to be an attorney, a gardener, a homemaker, raising your children, that's the ultimate calling. And so you treasure Jesus above all things in your life. I mean, he dominates your life. Jesus, this is constantly on your thoughts. He, in fact, will impart his desires into your heart.
What's most misunderstood about the Christ that we follow and that culture has really grown dull to?
Yeah.
That you will stress.
Jesus is the Lamb of God. He's the sacrifice of God. He has tenderness of God, but also he's the Lion of Judah. He's the warrior of God. In football, they're usually men, and a certain type of man, right? I mean, intense men, physically gifted men. How is this type of man gonna follow this type of Jesus? So are we in the church presenting Jesus in the way that he's most accurate? In Revelation, it describes how Jesus is going to come back riding a horse with a sword, getting ready to destroy all of his enemies to set up his kingdom. Do we realize that Jesus has a flame of fire when we see him? He's glowing like the sun. And when we see him, we're going to be like, whoa, I could follow you and I need to follow you. I will follow you. Jesus is no longer playing the lamb anymore. He's the lion forever.
What have you learned since becoming a pastor?
Yeah. To be very clear what God has called me to be and preach the word of God in a Christ-exalting way. So in essence, Tom, every time we preach the word, we're bringing them Jesus and then raise up leaders. Those two things.
From the pulpit, with the responsibility of a congregation, does he look any different to you than he did before?
Well, I'm gonna steal a line from one of my favorite movies, Chariots of Fire, and Eric Liddell, he goes, when I run, God made me fast, and when I run, I feel his pleasure. And when I teach and preach the word of God, I feel God's pleasure in a different way that I haven't even felt, even from coaching football, which I love, you know, but when I teach the word of God, I feel God's pleasure in a whole deeper and different way.
What an amazing, inspiring story. What an amazing, inspiring life choice. And what Rocky Seto has found, you can find as well. That Jesus that dominates his thinking and his life is available to all who call upon his name. want to encourage you to do that. We have a phone number you can call if you don't know what it's like to have a relationship with Christ and you'd like to, and our number's toll free. It's 1-800-700-7000. Time for some email. Are you ready?
Well, I'm not sure. Let's have what we got.
I'm not sure either. Okay. Well, Pat, this first one comes from Gracie, who says, "Hi, Mr. Pat. I am a young lady who recently met a godly young man who seems to enjoy my company, and I enjoy his. My dilemma is that a good friend of mine has had her sights on him for far longer. They are good friends, but I don't think he has a romantic interest in her. I'm caught between damaging a friendship and rejecting a possible relationship. Nothing has been communicated on his end, but I want to be ready if it does come. I know this sounds like a cheesy chick flick scenario, but I would love any advice you could give." There you go.
Cheesy chick flick. Listen, a thing like that, you know, you're not married, he's not married, you're not breaking up a relationship, and the fact that your friend has had intentions on this young man longer than you have, that really doesn't mean anything. But the question is, how serious is the guy? Is he really serious about you?
Well, she says he hasn't expressed any.
That's what I know she says, and that's what I'm asking the question. You need to determine. Maybe you can, you know, come right out. You know, it doesn't hurt to ask people things. You know.
Like, so you want to marry me?
Well, no, but that would chase him away, guaranteed.
Okay, Gracie, don't listen to me.
Gracie, what you would say is, look, I feel really attracted to you, and I'm wondering, how do you feel about me? I mean, I know that's hard. And he says, well, you're a nice girl, but I'm really, there's nothing there. Or you really, I mean, talk about stuff. You know, we're very reluctant to open up, and you have all these secret signals, but I think it's time to come out and say how you feel, all right?
Okay, this is Kay, who says, "My husband is the sole provider and I am a stay-at-home mom. He says I don't support him in his work. I'm not sure what to do. I ask him about his day, we pray together, and I do the cleaning, cooking, mowing, and sewing, mending, plus take care of our 3 children. What am I missing? I thought I was supportive."
You know what the advantage that a married man has over a single man? That's exactly that. You've got somebody at home who's going to take care of the kids, look after the bills, mow the grass, clean up the house, cook the food.
Well, I need a wife.
But, you know, your husband doesn't know what he's got. He's got something very valuable. And you need to have somebody sit down there with him and say, listen, Charlie, you've got something wonderful. Stop complaining. What does he want you to do? He wants you to get in business with him? I mean, that's crazy. I mean, you're doing the very thing a wife should do, and apparently from what you say, you're doing it very well. And a lot of men would thank God for a wife like you. So just keep that in mind. All right.
This is Victoria, who says, "Hi, I have a question about your prayers for healing. Are they in response to specific prayer requests, or has God put it on your heart to pray about a particular concern?"
Well, the word of knowledge is something that is beyond, you know, the spoken word. The Lord himself speaks and gives a word about somebody in the audience that's got a particular condition. And we're not planning it. It just comes because it's the Lord. That's what we're talking about. But there are specific times which you have people who ask, would you please pray for my knees hurt, or I've got a headache or something. But we don't have too many of them, actually. You know, we just pray in general for the whole audience, because we've got a big audience all around the world, and we've got to pray, ask God's blessing on all of them, not just a few. All right.
Okay, this is Arthur, who says, "Pat, my doctor has advised me to drink a glass of red wine daily. However, my pastor doesn't agree with drinking wine for any reason. What does the Bible say about drinking wine?"
Well, didn't you read what Jesus did? His greatest miracle was at a feast in Cana, where he turned water into wine, and the head of the feast said, "This is better than, you know, you saved the best to last." He said, "I'll never drink the fruit of the wine again till we drink it new in the kingdom of God." I mean, you know, he was called a wine bibber and a friend of sinners. There's absolutely nothing wrong with a glass of wine or two. especially in that culture. If wine would lead somebody to alcoholism, it's a different matter. So the Bible also said wine is a mocker and strong drink is raging. So you can drink too much of anything, but the Europeans and others, they have a glass of wine or 2 glasses of wine. There's nothing sinful about it. They think drinking coffee is sinful. It just depends on where you are.
Now you're messing with me. Get out of my space.
I've left off preaching and gone to meddling. But it depends on the culture. But again, Paul said, if eating meat causes my brother to offend, I'll eat no meat while the earth stands. If my drinking a glass of wine would cause anybody else to overindulge in drink, then I wouldn't drink a glass of wine as long as the world stands. I'm working on a blood thinner now, and they say you're not supposed to do anything, so absolutely. But I don't think there's anything wrong with somebody taking a couple glasses of wine, because that's what Jesus himself did. So he's our example. All right.
Well, that's all the time we have for today. Thank you for your answers. Thank you for your questions.
All right.
Well, still ahead, an emergency C-section goes all wrong.
It was the most painful thing I've ever went through. And so I felt like I was dying. It was horrible. I can feel every single thing. I could feel the doctor's hands.
See how this mom's life and the life of her baby were saved. That's coming up.
And welcome back to the 700 Club. Dozens of immigrant children are set to be released from detention centers and reunited with their parents today. They're among the thousands separated from their parents who were detained entering the country illegally. And a government attorney says at least 54 children under the age of 5 will join their parents by today's court-ordered deadline. The parents will be free while their cases wind through immigration court. They may be required to wear ankle monitors. In Japan, the death toll continues to rise after heavy rain slammed the country. The government confirms at least 134 people are dead, with more than 50 people still missing. Rescue crews are searching for survivors as floodwaters subside and landslides now loom. Thousands of homes are without clean water and electricity in Hiroshima and other hard-hit areas. Remember, you can always get the latest from CBN News by going to our website at cbnnews.com. Pat and Terry are back with more of today's 700 Club. It's coming up right after this.
Well, nearly 1 out of every 9 people on Earth, just think of that, 1 out of every 9 does not have access to clean water. Think of that. We're so used to it here in this country, but they don't. In Kenya, a mother who was named Sekulow used to walk 6 hours a day just to fill up a 5-gallon bucket of water. And now she doesn't even have to leave her home because of people just like you.
As the dust devils rise in the fields, Kimbosho rises with them. She gets up before dawn and works hard every day to care for her family in this dry region.
My husband died when my children were very young, so I am the father and the mother. I take care of everything. I'd leave my home around 7 every morning and walk to get water. It took me at least 6 hours every day. Carrying 5 gallons of water gave me terrible backaches. Sometimes I couldn't even move because of the pain. The water was only enough for cooking and drinking. There was none left for cleaning or washing ourselves.
With very little time to do anything else, Kimbosho struggled to make ends meet.
My daughter was sent home from school because I was unable to pay her school fees. I decided to pay the fees with the little money we had, but there was nothing left to feed my children. I believe that my children going to school will end our struggles one day.
Then, CBN's Operation Blessing dug a deep well in her community and pumped water right to her.
Everything has changed. I wash twice a day and my children do the same. I now have cows and goats that I sell, so I can buy and pay for everything I need.
And now, besides all of these, you even have a dairy cow over there, right?
Yes, my dairy cow produces so much milk, I sell the extra in the market. Now I am even paying my fees for my children to go to university. I have everything I need, thanks to the water and to God.
Now Kimbosho has enough water and food to take care of her whole family and all of her livestock.
I wish I could meet all of the people who made this happen and give them all a big hug. I pray God will bless you, your work, your whole generation, and all of your children.
Clean water, folks. We have helped hundreds of thousands of people have clean water. We just had this wonderful group called Widow's Mite that was raising money for wells, and they have put in, I think, 12,000 wells around the world.
Around the world, yeah.
But every well is $1,000, and but for $1,000 you can bring hope and life to a whole village. And it's just amazing what clean water can do. And people have to drink this fetid mess that's crawling with bugs and disease. And to get clean water, Terry, is beautiful.
Well, it's just as much the time element. This woman spent, what did we say, 6 hours a day, every day, going to get 5 gallons of water and couldn't even wash with it. So, a wonderful opportunity to change lives. And you can do that by joining the 700 Club, because that's the kind of thing that our family, our team here of 700 Club members is doing in people's lives around the world. And it's 65 cents a day, $20 a month. So see the difference you can make. And that's just one of the things that 700 Club members are doing. So join now. Our number's toll free. It's 1-800-700-7000. By the way, you've got a great teaching on angels. That's our way of saying thank you to people, and we want them to know they'll get that right away. Wilson and Elaine from Leesburg, Florida. Pat said, thank you for the wonderful Angels DVD. At a difficult time in our family, this teaching encouraged us to see how angels intervene in the lives of God's children. So we want people to have it. I love that. I thought that was a great DVD.
I've been reading, you read the New Testament, and it's just full of angels. I mean, angels appear to this group, and angels come to this one, and angels come to the centurion's house and tell him to do things. And there are angels all throughout the New Testament, and they're present. They're these wonderful beings that God has created that have enormous power. And he's given them, they said they watch over the heirs of salvation. And so we have angels around us here. There's no question about it. People have been here in the studio in times past, and they've actually seen angels around us. Because, there's so much prayer. We really believe in angelic beings.
Yeah, well, when you call and join the 700 Club now, we're going to get angels out to you right away. I think you'll be blessed by it.
You say we'll get angels to you?
Yeah, sending angels your way.
We'll get a DVD having to do with it. Hey, what you got?
Well, Jackie Dawson had already endured 20 hours of labor when her doctor ordered an emergency C-section, but the pain medication hadn't kicked in, and Jackie could feel every aspect of that surgery. So while she cried out for mercy, her husband stormed heaven with prayer.
July 6, 2016 was an exciting day for Jackie and Gabriel Wilford. That afternoon, Jackie went into labor with their first child.
Prayed my whole life, I want a son, I want someone that I can raise up to be a servant for you, God.
Jackie had been in labor 20 hours when they learned the baby developed an infection. With mother and child in danger, her doctor ordered an emergency C-section.
I don't think it set in, the reality of a C-section and the complications. They could both die if they don't do this procedure. So when it really hit me is when I actually saw her on the table. That's when I'm like, okay, this is something real. This is a serious thing.
They started the surgery, but the pain blockers hadn't taken effect.
It was the most painful thing I've ever went through. And so I felt like I was dying. It was horrible. I can feel every single thing. I could feel the doctor's hands press on my stomach, and then it was just really painful.
The doctor delivered a healthy baby boy, but by then, Jackie had gone into shock.
I kept uncontrollably shaking, and I had to keep my hands to my body because I felt like my body was just shutting down. I couldn't speak at one point.
I knew it was serious, but I didn't want to let my mind start to think about it. And then, if I'm panicking, well, then there's no way that I can be there for my kid or my wife.
Gabriel texted family in the waiting area to pray for Jackie.
I remember the doctor saying, okay, well, we're gonna put you to sleep right now. And then at that time, I was praying Lord, please, 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 help me, help my son, and make sure we come out healthy.
The doctors stabilized Jackie and moved her to a recovery room. Gabriel thought the danger was past.
It was a sigh of relief. I was like, okay, Jackie's in the recovery room. She's holding the baby. She's a little woozy, but that's okay. It all went south when the doctor walked over to her and, he pulled up the blankets that were on her. There was so much blood that just came out. It just came pouring out.
I was really scared. I was scared of what I saw. I saw in his eyes a little bit of fear, and I became fearful.
Jackie passed out, and the doctor called a code blue. Gabriel and baby Dawson were rushed from the room as the code blue team went to work.
I just wanted somebody to come and grab me and tell me it's gonna be okay. I was preparing myself for the worst. I did not want to be a single dad. Jackie's so fun and she's my best friend. So it'd be like losing, a part of me and things like that.
Alone in the hall, Gabriel cried out to God.
I opened my heart to him and I told him, if you could save Jackie, if you could hear this prayer of mine, he spoke to me right away.
Gabriel says God assured him that he was in control and that Jackie would be fine.
I cried out to him and he was right there. Before I even cried out to him, he was right there. I just didn't see it. God had taken my burden, taken those woes, and no matter what happened, I knew, hey, it's gonna be okay. You don't have to worry about anything at all.
A few minutes later, they told Gabriel his wife had pulled through and was resting. He recalls the relief as he walked into her room.
I just started joking around with her, how I was like, you almost died on me. I remember thinking all those things, we could joke so much. My sister's my best friend.
Over the next couple of days, Gabriel opened up in a Facebook post about his love for Jackie and the miraculous answer to prayer.
I couldn't let her know how scared I was. I wanted to say I love you and tell her everything's gonna be okay. I watched helplessly as they tried to save my wife. I wanted to cry out to God and ask him why. God spoke to me. Gabriel, my son, I love you more than you can imagine. It's okay to call on me. I will always love you.
Dawson was given a round of antibiotics to clear up his infection. A few days later, he and Jackie were released from the hospital. Both Jackie and Gabriel believe that prayer saved her life that day.
I really believe that God heard our prayers, that maybe it was time for me to go. Maybe my time here on earth was done. There was no more for me, and God heard someone's voice saying that I have a purpose. I have a reason to be here. God answered prayers because I really thought I was dying.
A lot of people, I don't think they understand the power of prayer. It's your one connection to God, that he actually hears your voice, the maker of the world. They can actually hear you.
Prayer is power, no matter in what circumstance, no matter how amazing your circumstances are. It is powerful. It is the most powerful tool we have. And when we finally recognize how powerful it is, we can move mountains.
That same power is available to you, and we want to take some time to pray for your needs today. We've got some encouragement for you, and I know you've got one. Pat Sandra says, I have a genetic condition which causes venous insufficiency to be an issue in my left leg. Sitting can be unbearable. You had a word of knowledge, Pat, about someone having a problem with their left thigh. She says, I claimed it. Praise God for the answer to the condition. I've not experienced any discomfort since.
Praise God. Well, here's one. Kathleen lives in Killeen, Texas, suffering from locked up toes called hammer toes. And on June the 15th, she was watching our program, and you had this word, you have a condition called hammer toes. Did you know Colleen?
I don't
Kathleen?
know Colleen, no.
Well, you prayed and the toes straightened out and she's
Praise
no longer
God.
locked and she wears any shoes she wants to and she's very happy.
Yay.
Yay. All right. Well, folks, it's time to pray. We haven't got much time before the end of the show, but we want you to pray for you right now. Wherever you are, we're going to believe God. Father, I agree with my sister. We pray for these people in this audience, wherever they are, however the condition is. Lord, for the financial needs, for the family needs, for the people in difficult marriages, people in difficult situations in their nation, whatever it is, we join them in prayer. And we pray, Lord, for this great nation we live in. Lord, let righteousness roll like a river in Jesus' name. Terry, you have
I
any?
want to say there's someone, you have a condition with your tongue that causes you to slur words when you talk. I don't know what it is, but God's healing that for you right now. There's just going to be a release in your mouth to be able to speak clearly and effectively.
And Father, whoever's out in this audience is crying to you, Lord, hear their prayer. Hear their prayer and minister to your people. Let them know your presence, Lord. Come into their lives in Jesus' name. Amen and amen. Well, thanks for being with us. Today's Power Minute is from the book of Proverbs. Fear the Lord and depart from evil. It will be health to your flesh and strength to your bones. Well, for all of us, this is Pat Robertson. And tomorrow we're going to tell you a story about babies who've been addicted to opioids, how they're being set free. So until then, we'll see you. God bless you. Bye-bye.